The moment I realized my secret no longer belonged to me, something quiet but heavy shifted inside my chest. It wasn't loud, it wasn't dramatic, it was subtle, like a hairline crack in a mirror you didn't notice until the reflection started to look distorted. We were sitting together, sipping warm tea, exchanging harmless laughter. Then someone casually repeated a detail from my life, a detail I had only ever whispered in confidence. My smile froze for half a second too long. No one noticed, but I did. I have always believed in closeness, in honesty, in opening my heart to the people I love. My days were simple back then. Morning routines filled with soft sunlight, the scent of fresh toast, and messages from friends who called me family. I found comfort in sharing my worries, my hopes, my small failures, my private dreams. It made me feel understood. It made me feel seen. So when someone asked about my struggles, I answered. When someone leaned in and said, "You can trust me," I believed them. I thought vulnerability was a sign of courage. I thought keeping things bottled up was weakness. But trust is fragile. The first warning came quietly. A friend joked about a personal fear I had confessed during a late-night conversation. She said it lightly, like it was nothing, like it was public knowledge. I forced a laugh, even though my chest tightened. Later, another person hinted at a mistake from my past, something I had only ever shared in a moment of emotional honesty. Again, I brushed it off. I told myself I was imagining things, that I was overreacting. Still, a question lingered in my mind. Who was listening and who was repeating? And slowly, I began to realize something painful. Not everyone who hears your heart is protecting it. Some people collect secrets for power, some for entertainment, and some simply don't respect the weight of what you've entrusted to them. That realization would soon change the way I trusted forever. At first, I tried to convince myself it was coincidence. After all, people talk, stories travel, memories blur. I didn't want to become suspicious of everyone around me. I didn't want to turn into someone who sees betrayal in every smile. But then I started noticing patterns. There was the friend who listened with wide, sympathetic eyes, always eager for the next confession, the next emotional detail. She never shared much about herself, yet she seemed to know everything about everyone else. Her curiosity felt flattering at first. Later, it felt invasive. Then there was the relative who disguised judgment as concern. Whenever I opened up, their tone would soften, but their eyes would sharpen. Weeks later, I'd hear my own words echo back to me through someone else's mouth, twisted just enough to sound worse than I had meant. And then there was the one who smiled too warmly. They encouraged me to speak. They nodded, reassured me, told me I was safe. But I began to sense something beneath that kindness, not loyalty, but leverage, as if every secret I shared was quietly stored away, waiting for the right moment. I started replaying old conversations in my mind, the trembling in my voice when I admitted my fears, the pauses before I revealed something personal, the relief I felt after confessing something heavy. I wondered how many of those moments had been repeated, how many of my private thoughts had become entertainment, how many of my secrets were no longer mine. That's when an old line from Ovid came to mind. He who reveals secrets destroys trust. But I realized something deeper. Sometimes it isn't just the person who reveals the secret who is at fault. Sometimes it's the person who chooses the wrong listener. Slowly, I began to understand a painful truth. Not everyone deserves access to your inner world. Some people will use your secrets to gossip. Some will use them to judge you. And some will keep them close, not to protect you, but to protect their advantage. And I was about to learn that lesson the hardest way possible. The real betrayal didn't arrive loudly. It slipped into my life through a casual conversation, a harmless gathering, soft music in the background, polite laughter floating through the room. Someone made a comment about a personal struggle I had never shared publicly. The words were mine, the story was mine, but the control over it was gone. My heart sank in a way that felt both cold and familiar. Later that evening, I confronted the person I suspected. I kept my voice calm, even though it trembled slightly at the edges. "I told you that in confidence," I said quietly. They smiled, not apologetically, but defensively. They didn't think it was a big deal, they replied. You're too sensitive. People talk anyway. Each excuse felt like a small knife. Another person denied everything outright, their voice smooth and convincing. And the third? They didn't deny it at all. They simply shrugged, as if secrets were lightweight things, not pieces of someone's heart. That night, I sat alone, replaying every confession I had ever made. The dreams I had whispered, the fears I had admitted, the mistakes I had revealed in moments of honesty. I realized I had been handing people emotional weapons, trusting they would never raise them against me. That was when the pattern became painfully clear. There are 3 kinds of people you should never trust with your secrets. The one who gossips, who feeds on other people's stories, the one who judges, who stores your flaws to feel superior, and the one who competes, who keeps your vulnerabilities as leverage. Ovid once warned that words once spoken can never be taken back. And in that silence, staring at my phone, feeling the weight of my own openness, I finally understood. Discretion is not coldness, it is wisdom. Some truths are meant to be guarded, not shared. And from that moment on, I promised myself something quietly but firmly. Not everyone deserves to hear your heart. After that realization, I stopped speaking as freely as I once had. Not out of bitterness, but out of respect for my own peace. I began to notice how differently people reacted when I shared less. Some lost interest. Some tried harder to pry. Others grew uncomfortable when I no longer fed their curiosity. It was as if my silence exposed their intentions more clearly than my honesty ever had. I tested it quietly. When someone leaned in with that familiar tone, "You can tell me anything," I smiled politely and kept my answer light. When a friend pushed for details about my personal life, I redirected the conversation. When a relative tried to dig into old wounds, I offered a gentle boundary instead of a confession. And something surprising happened. The gossipers grew restless. The judges grew cold. The competitors grew distant. Their reactions confirmed what my heart had already learned. Secrets, I realized, are not meant for those who seek entertainment. They are not meant for those who collect your weaknesses, and they are certainly not meant for those who secretly want to see you fall. Ovid once wrote that silence is sometimes the wisest reply. In my own quiet way, I began to live by that. I learned to share my struggles only with those who had proven their loyalty over time. People who didn't rush my vulnerability. People who didn't twist my words. People who treated my truth with care instead of curiosity. Trust, I discovered, should be earned, not assumed. And though I felt a trace of sadness for the openness I had lost, I also felt stronger, calmer, more in control of my own story. Because once a secret leaves your lips, it no longer belongs to you. But when you guard it, it becomes a shield. A shield for your dignity, a shield for your peace, a shield for your future. And that lesson, though painful, reshaped the way I speak and the way I trust. Still, there was a part of me that mourned the person I used to be. The version of myself who shared freely, who believed that honesty would always be met with kindness, who thought that being open meant being safe. But life taught me otherwise. One day, someone tried to use an old secret against me. It wasn't dramatic, no shouting, no public scene, just a quiet attempt to make me feel small, a subtle reminder that they knew something personal, something they thought could control me. I felt the familiar sting of embarrassment for a moment. Then I felt something new, calm. I looked at them and realized their power only existed because I had once been afraid of my own truth. But I wasn't afraid anymore, not of my past, not of my mistakes, not of the story I carried. I'm not ashamed of that, I said gently, and I'm not afraid of you knowing it. They looked surprised, disarmed, almost disappointed. That was another lesson. Secrets only have power when they are fueled by shame. When you accept your imperfections, when you own your story with quiet dignity, others lose the ability to use it against you. But that doesn't mean you should give everyone access to your heart. There's a difference between being honest and being exposed, between being open and being unprotected, between being kind and being careless. I learned to choose my listeners carefully. Not the loudest voices, not the most curious ones, not the people who thrived on drama, but the quiet souls, the steady ones, the people who listened without hunger in their eyes. Because some people want your secrets for gossip, some want them for judgment, and some want them for advantage. But a rare few want them only to protect you, and those are the only ones worth trusting. That realization didn't harden me, it refined me. It taught me wisdom wrapped in silence, and strength rooted in self-respect. And in that quiet strength, I finally felt in control of my own story. Over time, word began to spread, not about my secrets, but about my silence. People noticed I no longer overshared. I no longer explained myself unnecessarily. I no longer filled quiet moments with personal confessions. And strangely, that change unsettled some of them. A few tried to paint me as distant. Others hinted that I had become secretive, even arrogant. Some whispered that I thought I was too good to open up anymore. But I knew the truth. I wasn't hiding. I was protecting my peace. When old rumors resurfaced, fragments of things I had once trusted others with, I didn't rush to defend myself. I didn't beg for understanding. I didn't chase every misinterpretation. Instead, I stayed composed. People began to see who had been spreading the stories. The gossip lost credibility. The judgment looked petty. The ones who had weaponized my vulnerability started facing quiet social consequences. Fewer people trusted them. Fewer listened. Fewer confided. And I didn't feel triumphant. I felt calm. There was no need for revenge, no need for public confrontation. The truth has a way of settling on its own, especially when you carry yourself with dignity. In private moments, I reflected on how differently I now moved through the world. I spoke more thoughtfully. I listened more carefully. I revealed less, but meant more. My relationships became fewer, but deeper. Conversations felt safer. Trust felt earned instead of assumed. I finally understood something Ovid once hinted at in his wisdom, that restraint is not weakness. It is discipline. It is maturity. It is quiet power. Not every thought deserves a voice. Not every feeling needs an audience. Not every secret belongs outside your heart. And as my world grew quieter, it also grew more peaceful. Because when you choose silence over oversharing, you choose control over regret. And that choice changes everything. In the quiet that followed, I began to rebuild a softer, steadier version of myself. Not colder, not distant, just wiser. I learned that healing doesn't always come from speaking. Sometimes it comes from choosing what not to say. I started pouring my thoughts into a private journal instead of public conversations. The scratch of pen on paper became my safe space. I confided in time, in reflection, in patience. Slowly, the urge to explain myself to everyone faded, and in that stillness, I found peace. I forgave the people who had mishandled my trust, not because they deserved it, but because I refused to carry resentment in my heart. I accepted that they acted from insecurity, curiosity, or quiet envy. Understanding their motives didn't excuse them, but it freed me. I stopped replaying the past, stopped wishing I had stayed silent, stopped blaming myself for being open-hearted. Instead, I honored the lesson. Now, when someone leans close and asks for my deepest truths, I pause. I watch how they treat others. I listen to how they speak about people who aren't present. I notice whether they protect or expose, respect or exploit. Trust is no longer automatic. It is intentional. And when I do choose to share, it feels sacred, not risky. There is a quiet power in knowing that your story belongs to you, that your words are chosen, not spilled, that your heart is open, but not unguarded. Looking back, I don't regret being vulnerable. Vulnerability taught me empathy, but discernment taught me survival. Some people deserve your honesty, others only deserve your politeness, and a very small few deserve your secrets. That balance between openness and protection became my greatest strength. And today, I carry my silence not as fear, but as wisdom earned through experience. Sometimes, I wonder how different my life might have been if I had learned this lesson earlier. If I had understood that not every listener is a guardian, and not every smile is a sign of loyalty. But perhaps we all have to learn it the hard way. So, if there's one truth I'd leave you with tonight, it's this. Your secrets are pieces of your soul. Give them only to those who treat them with care. Beware of the one who gossips. They trade trust for attention. Beware of the one who judges. They collect flaws to feel superior. Beware of the one who competes. They store your weaknesses as weapons. Silence, when chosen wisely, is not loneliness. It is dignity. It is self-respect. It is power. Before you speak your deepest truth, ask yourself, would this person protect my name if I weren't in the room? And if not, keep your story safe. Would you have shared your secrets as freely as I once did, or would you choose silence? Tell me your thoughts in the comments, and if this story resonated with you, consider subscribing to the channel for more reflective stories inspired by timeless wisdom.